They also had to enforce the award in France. In France, they did maximum review, and in France, they dug up evidence of corruption and set aside the award. So that is a real-life example of the difference between minimal and maximum. Now, in between minimal and maximal, we have what we call contextual. Contextual is described at slides 44, 45. This comes from Lord Justice Waller, who expressed this view both in Soleimani and Soleimani, which you may remember was about smuggling carpets out of Iran, as well as in West Asia itself, where Waller was in the Court of Appeal, but was a dissenting judge. Now, what Lord Justice Waller says is that there is a two-stage test. First of all, you have to establish some prima facie evidence of corruption. If you get past that prima facie threshold, then the court will exercise full review. So there's a little bit of a filter, and then you go for full review. Singapore at the moment seems to be going for full maximum review without going through the intermediate threshold. So that's more or less where the countries are. And I won't go into the two classes of public policy, which are at slides 53 onwards. What this refers to is that you remember that Lord Phillips, Justice Phillips as he then was, said, when you fight against public policy, you want English public policy to bite on events happening outside of England. Then we're not talking about English domestic public policy. We're talking about English international public policy, which is public policy for model law purposes, public policy under Article 34 of the model law, which Singapore also has. So it is that higher level of public policy, as opposed to simply being against domestic public policy, for example, a gaming contract, and so on. The problem is that when it comes to declaring contracts or awards void as being against international public policy, we are going for enforcement. And for enforcement, you either set aside if the seat was in Singapore, or if it's New York Convention, then you apply Article 5, and they both have the same test. You will not set aside, or you will not deny registration of a foreign award unless it is against the public policy of Singapore. And the higher standard has been interpreted in England as being very, very grave offences to qualify as being against public policy. So the list that was given by Justice Coleman in West Asia was drug trafficking, terrorism, prostitution, pedophilia, and bank robbery. So he came and said, corruption is not on the same level. So in England, you have tier 1 public policy, and you have tier 2. And corruption at the moment is on tier 2. Right, let me, as I said, I don't have time for dealing with treaty arbitration. I want to wind up with a few scenarios. Where's the scenario? 60. Okay. Let's go. Let's see where we are at after this walkthrough of the law on corrupt contracts. I'm giving you